Freud was diagnosed with cancer of the jaw. He underwent more than 30 operations, and he died in 1939. So the cigars got to him at the very end. His writings, this doesn't even really scratch the surface of his writings and the amazing work that he did. Really an extraordinary man. He did write about religion for a short period of time in the early 1900s. So religion, think about this. He diagnosed it as a complex originating in the Oedipal complex, and he never changed his mind about this. He tried to understand religion within a psychoanalytic framework. So how does religion arise according to Freud? It arises from a childhood neurosis, where unresolved Oedipal complexes create a neurosis. So a neurosis comes about when a person cannot face reality on reality's terms. And so when this happens, humans turn to a false reality, the most common being drugs, work, sex, religion. So Freud says of the religious person that he or she is an emotionally underdeveloped child in an adult's body. And because there are these false realities, the only way back is through the need for the comfort of a father figure. Think about that. A father figure. God is supposed to console and protect, but Freud believed that the evidence was that this is not true at all. At all is this true. A human father would do everything in his power to protect his children. A mother would do everything in her power to protect her children. But we don't see this with God. So early on in the 20s, he writes, the function of religions are consolation. That there is a God who is created, who cares deeply and reassures that when things get tough, everything will be well. This is the classic father image. And this is how God the Father is actually shown in antiquity. Religion provides requirements on how to live. Freud said, it's good for people to wish to have boundaries in their lives, want things to be fair, give up something now for the promise of giving something later. Now, Freud wrote about this, but he believed all of this to be silly. He wished for a life to be lived as he could dream it right in the moment. He would have nothing to do with religion. He would have absolutely nothing to do in believing that he needed a daddy figure in his life. He was perfectly capable of taking reality on reality's terms, and that's how he wished to live his life. He was simply describing what he saw in religion. So for him, religion answers the really tough questions, the existential questions of life. Who am I? Why are we all here? Who created all this? And what am I to do with my life? These are existential questions that Freud believed religion was created to answer, because the answers aren't apparent right away to somebody who is simply living their life. They need to go to God to answer these hard questions. Okay, so that's Freud. Does anybody have any questions, or does anybody who knows more about Freud in this little sliver of the book, would you like to add anything to that?
How did he feel about his own father?
Never says. However, I read a piece where he and Jung were talking about Freud's theories. And Freud was ever trying to get people to make confessions to him. He wanted to be seen as a father figure. And so Jung came to him, and somehow or another, through the course of their conversation, Jung began to open his heart to Freud. And whenever it came time for the reciprocal, Freud apparently looked at him and said, "I would never tell you those things." And the two separated soon after. So I don't know what that tells you about how he felt about his own father, but I would imagine it was a troubling relationship. Right?
Well, that's kind of my question. What's the relationship with his children? He had 6 children.
6 children. Apparently, it was he was an absent father, and so I don't find anything that talks about how deeply he cared and loved his children. He clearly believed that the most important thing in a child's life is the presence of a forgiving and loving father. He was mostly involved with psychoanalyzing men at the very beginning, but towards the end, he also came to understand this Oedipal complex between mother and father and girls and boys. So oftentimes he would say, "It's your mom." If he felt like everything was stable in your own house of origin, then there was an issue with your mother, your mom. Okay, so let's push on. Let's talk about Paul Tillich. And then we'll get to a kind of a meeting of the minds here. So Paul Tillich was born in 1886 in Brandenburg, Germany, now part of Poland. His family moved to Berlin in 1900 when his father was called to be a Lutheran pastor there. And so after graduating from Friedrich Wilhelm Gymnasium in 1904, I'd like to graduate from a gymnasium. Does that sound like the curriculum would be easier? In 1904, Tillich attended the universities of Tübingen in Germany, and then he graduated in 1911 from the University of Breslau with a doctoral degree in philosophy. In 1912, Tillich was ordained as a minister in the Lutheran Church. He spent 4 years as a military chaplain during World War I, and Tillich came to teach at some very prestigious universities and seminaries in United States, namely Union Theological Seminary in New York and Harvard and Chicago. He became a U.S. citizen finally in 1940. And so that's him at his desk there. Tillich wrote, "Man's ultimate concern must be expressed symbolically, because symbolic language alone is able to express the ultimate." And so you can see this would fit right in with a people like Episcopalians who believe ourselves to be sacramental people. We have sacraments that point to God's grace and that avenue of the grace that we receive as the people of God. And so he would follow right on the line with us. So Tillich was opposed to any understanding of God that might give the impression of a deity being one among others. God, in Tillich's view, was the tapestry of being, that we all have our own beings embedded. And so I got this idea from my own grandparents, who were not learned people at all. They were farmers. But they had heard this idea of God being a tapestry, and they lived their life within that tapestry of God's being. This is something that I got from my own maternal grandparents. So, God does not exist. He is being itself, beyond existence and beyond essence. So God does not exist, but God is this tapestry, this everything. There is not one entity that is God. God is everything. So Tillich characterized theology as this methodological interpretation of the contents of the Christian faith. That is, the Christian faith had to be interpreted and could only be interpreted by reason. So right now you see just the foundations of what he's going to do with his life's work, and how that might begin to rub up against what Freud believed. So everything must be by reason, and where Freud was looking for something underneath reason, looking for the unexamined reason why people do things. Tillich didn't have any use for that sort of thing. And so we're going to get to what Tillich did here in just a moment here. So following Aquinas, Tillich sought to show how revelation could be reconciled with reason, since in the end there could be no insurmountable conflict between the two. His understanding of religion emphasized the importance of symbolism, and he held that reason played the role of interpreting revelation through expressions of the infinite. Tillich died in Chicago in 1965, and his ashes are interred in that park in Chicago. So, this sums up his idea of faith. So what religion turns out to be is one's ultimate concern. Religion is a state of being grabbed by an ultimate concern. And this is how he came up with this. He was raised in Germany, and he saw the rise of the Nazi movement, and this informed these views. He saw Jews losing everything because they believed in God. He saw some Christians protect the Jews. Christians also sacrificed everything to be true to what they believe. So in the midst of all this, he was looking at people like Bonhoeffer, about how Bonhoeffer came to the United States. He could have easily remained here and been safe, but as a Christian, Bonhoeffer went back to Germany and was ultimately killed there. So he watched also Nazi members sacrifice everything to be a part of this movement. He looks at that Nazi movement, he said, those people also sacrificed everything, values, integrity. They sacrificed everything in order to be a member of the Nazi party. So for the Jews, the Christians, and the Nazis within that German context, they had loyalty to a set of ideals. Whether right or wrong in any of that, it was that loyalty to the ideals that they decided that a certain way is worth making these ideals their ultimate concern. Ultimate concern. So for a Nazi, the ultimate concern was to follow the Fuhrer. Their ultimate concern was to believe that some groups of human beings are less than human beings. Their ultimate concern was to stay with the group. And you can see almost polar opposite among the Christian and Jewish communities, again, within that German context. So, for Tillich's view, everyone is religious by this definition. Everyone is religious. Everyone has something they will hang on to until the end. This is what he defined as an ultimate concern. Something their lives completely revolve around, something that drives their lives, something that they would sacrifice their lives for. So in what ways are any of these normative? So either written or not, there is a contract between every person and their ultimate concern that demands loyalty. If you are a Jew within the German context when the Nazis were rising, you had a contract with your people, your nation, your God, and that contract was to be honored unto the end. The same, in Tillich's view, the same for the Nazi. There was a contract with the fatherland, and that was going to be held higher than anything else. They would give their lives for the fatherland. So these contracts between people and God and people and something not God, they are the ultimate concern. There's a promise. It's money, it's status, it is an afterlife. It is a promise of something being better. It is a promise that if you live your life in a certain way, you will be better off. You might get killed for it, but you will be better off. You will be living as the Creator designed you. And that would be an ultimate concern. So let's just look at it. Work can be an ultimate concern. We all know people that we believe work too much. The promise is money, status, office, car, but the demands for that, free time, family, health, does the promise outweigh the demand? Everyone has to make that choice. Drugs and alcohol. The promise is numbing pain, social acceptance, escape. The demand is money, loss of reputation, and relationship. Again, we make these decisions. We decide what is our ultimate concern. So Tillich believes this to be rational and normal, a regular part of everyday life. So these, right now, are how we begin to look at these two people. So for Tillich, he looks at Freud, and he says Freud lacks symbolism in his life. He's not talking about dreams, but he's talking about his religious writings. For Tillich, Freud lacks symbols. For Tillich, he didn't believe Freud needed any sort of talk about neurosis, any of that. But if Freud looked at Tillich, Freud would say, Tillich, look what you went through in your childhood. Look what you saw. Jews being killed, property being taken, bombs coming down in your own homeland. Freud would say to Tillich, you need a father figure in which to cast all of this anxiety that you had as a child upon. That's the role of God in your life, Paul Tillich. Freud would say, all of this anxiety that you have in your life, that is the reason why you need God. So here's the thing. I highly recommend this book. Highly recommend it. Especially if you haven't gone very deep into Freud or really any of the classic theologians. Really extraordinary. Where it suffers is, it suffers because it's such a thin slice. It allows somebody like me to stand up here and say, this is what Freud said. When Freud had a writing career of some 30 years. I mean, huge numbers of books and articles, all in defense of his idea about how the mind works, how behaviors come from our unconscious and then are acted out in the world. There's no way that you could know about Freud reading this book. But what this book offers is particular slices of people's writings, how they feel humanity works, and then it tries to compare them to what a theologian would say, how life works, relationships, communities. Highly recommended. You have questions? Yes, Joe.
In the case of Freud, you had this morality, which there's no basis in morality.
No.
Tillich is saying that morality is determined by our reasoning. So we create our own God, in essence.
Yes.
And I think that totally escapes what the gospel says. The gospel says over and over again, or even in the Old Testament, I'm going to be with you. You like it or lump it or whatever. God, I'm going to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a God that is. past, present, and future.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Tillich, no, it's, I make him up every day, and I don't think that's right either.
Right.
I think living in that type of a world of what Tillich had is a chaotic world.
I see where you could get that. Absolutely. So again, Tillich says that God is the tapestry, where we kind of in our own prayer book language, we live, we move, we have our being. We live within this God that is all encompassing. So for Freud, there is no such thing. Life does not have meaning for Freud. There is no meaning in life. For Paul Tillich, he would say that we get that meaning from this tapestry that we live in, because we see the needs of others. We want to be part of this God thing, this God tapestry. And so for Tillich, the scriptures have a lot to say about what a community should do, right? But it's not step one, step two, step three.
Now, how much of Tillich and Reinhold Niebuhr are one of the same? Because they're really kind of contemporary.
They are very contemporary. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Jay.
Wasn't Tillich the one that ultimately, after all his theology and books, and he says we have the leap of faith?
Leap of faith.
Yeah.
So, Paul Tillich has this idea of a leap of faith, and that's what faith actually is. He makes a distinction, rightly so, I think, between what is religion, and that's what we've been talking about here, what is religion and what is faith. For Paul Tillich, religion is the knowable things. There is Jesus Christ. There is God the Father. There is God the Holy Spirit. These are all things that are quantifiable. We know God moves within a community of faith, and we can see this as believers. This is known. But he says that's not faith. Faith is where we take what we know and we step off and we do something with it. So, in our gospel today, if you've been to the big church, you know about the 70 being sent out, right? So for Tillich would look at that gospel and say, everything that those 70 knew, they learned at the feet of Jesus. It was do this, do this, do this, do this. That's great. Now go. And so if you've ever done one of those go steps, if you've ever started a business, if you've ever gone to remember your first day of school, right? Whatever school you went to, it's taking everything that you knew and then you stepped out and you say, now you have to rely on what you know and then transcend it, right? Synthesize it into what you're going to do next. Exactly right. Yeah.
So according to Freud, atheists are the most well-balanced because only those people who are deeply disturbed would be religious.
I don't think we can go that far. I think what we can say is Freud saw neuroses everywhere. So he's not saying that if you're not religious, you're fine. I think he saw a lot of trouble in humanity. But what he says is that if you're not religious, you have one less neurosis on your plate. Right?
Freud would think of what about the hereafter? Not at all?
Nothing. There's nothing. You have your life, and then you wink out.
Now, how could people follow that and be comforted?
I have stopped trying to figure out humanity. Personally, I think humanity ought to be in here with us. I mean, I'm not sure I could be a priest unless I thought that Jesus Christ offered something so compelling that we should all listen. I'm sure I couldn't be a priest unless I believed that, right?
Amen.
Yeah, hang on one second. Yeah. What?
Would you say it would be fair to say that Freud gets people off the hook by saying, even though I did these things, it's really my mother and father's fault, and I'm not accountable. So if I went out and got into trouble, it's because of the way my parents raised me.
I think there's something. I saw a glimmer of that in this slice of his writings. He would say there's just absolutely, he said those people are just working out of the id. That ego and superego are not in play in how their behaviors are coming out into the world.
I'm thinking some of you may have attended this and know about who I'm speaking. About 15 or 20 years ago, there was an academic researcher who wrote a book about Freud and God and Jesus, and he came to SMU and spoke there, and I attended, and he took all of Freud's writing, the book was about this thing, about the times he spoke about God and Jesus, and then looked back at what was going on in Freud's life at this time. And at the end of this long talk at SMU, he made the point that no other atheist writer or researcher or academic ever spent so much time and energy trying to deny God and deny Jesus, and that he felt that he really inside probably believed that there was a God in Jesus, but always fought to prove to the world that there wasn't. And some of you may have attended. I think his last name, I tried to look up some Google when you were talking, but it's so long ago, they just have more recent books about Freud and telling a number of them.
Well, he was, Freud was an extraordinary person. I have a service in here in 10 minutes. Thank you so much for coming.